Welcome to the Rewilded Human Podcast, where Dr. Lucille and Lynn will tackle your most difficult and intimate questions with candor, tough love, and a little dash of humor. In today's episode,
you do all the things you're supposed to do. The kids leave the nest and you turn and look at one another and you go, what do we have in common? Like what, right? And I think women are less tolerant of that. As you said, they say to themselves, well, I'm not that old and I want to have a life. I don't just want to sit on the couch with my grumpy old guy, right? Welcome, everybody, to the Rewilded Human Podcast, where I, Dr. Lucille, and my lovely partner in crime here, Lynn Hardy, decide your fate. No, I'm just joking. We are here to help all of you navigate your lives much better so that you can become more empowered. And what we are about, as we are in the helping professions, both of us. I happen to be a psychiatrist, psychotherapist, and also a Healy World member. I love introducing people to frequency devices. And so I am here to just help you all with your questions, with whatever you need to get back to the empowered, wonderful human being that you were always meant to be. And I'd love to turn it over to my cohort here, Lynn, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hello, guys. I'm Lynn Hardy, and I'm a nutritional consultant and a naturopath. But actually, I keep forgetting to tell you guys, I started studying psychology. I did the first year of psychology in Toronto. So that was my original interest. And then somehow my life changed and I went down the naturopathic route instead. But I always had this really strong interest in psychology, in the human psyche, in relationship. And, I've read hundreds, if not thousands, of self-help books and everything. So this is like a real passion for me. And it's such a privilege to do this podcast with Dr. Lucille, because I feel like we have like such different and interesting perspectives to give to you guys. So thank you so much for being here and for listening to us. And we appreciate you guys so much. We appreciate your support. Keep sending us those questions so that we can keep going with future episodes. And we love you guys. This is awesome. So today we're going to jump right in. We've got 4 amazing questions for you guys that are going to be just fascinating. And the first one is from Linda, who is fed up with her partner's behavior. Linda says, my partner and I have been together for over 20 years. Since he entered his 60s, he's changed and it's getting on my nerves. He's become a grumpy old man. Then to top it off, he had a health scare when the doctor told him he was at a high risk for diabetes and a heart attack. Since then, he's been even more grumpy, worried, and obsessed with every sensation he feels in his body. At first, I was supportive, and then I just got fed up and nothing I said seemed to work. I'm also confused because he's changed his lifestyle and his blood work is now normal. Nothing to worry about now, according to the doctor, but he's still grumpy and anxious. What do you think can help him? Something happens to guys around their 60s, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I've got a grumpy guy downstairs as well. He's turning 62 in February. And we go through menopause as women, and I think the changes that we go through are they're quite rapid and they happen quite quickly. And I think what men go through is more gradual, but if a lot of them do become grumpier. And do you find that?
Oh, for sure. And, one of the things that you might want to keep in mind is, women have menopause, but men's testosterone does fall significantly, as they get older. And that leads them to being more at risk for depression. And depression in men looks like the grumpy old man.
Exactly.
It's the grumpy old man. They tend to be more irritable, more anxious. They fret. They worry about things that, you might think is like nothing. So I would suggest that, that may be the main issue with your partner. I'm very, very sorry for you, Linda, because it's a pain to live with somebody like that.
It is, definitely.
Yeah, yeah. And I know you feel helpless because you're trying and trying. You're the partner. You want to be a good wife. You want to be there for them, and nothing you do seems to make them feel any better. They're just totally obsessed with their own problems and their own grumpiness. So, yes, this is a very, very common problem. And if the changes that he's made in his lifestyle, like sometimes it is that, if you're eating way too much sugar, or you have a really very bad diet and you never get up off the couch, that can certainly make you grumpy, and it can make you depressed. But if he's changed that, like maybe he stopped eating sugar or whatever he's done to make his blood work normal, and it's still not improving his temperament, I would say that you might want to educate yourself about depression in men, how it manifests. And you might want to start suggesting that his family doctor take another look at his mental state. The other thing that, I would say, what happens with women in these situations, and I understand it completely, is that they go from being supportive to then starting to get angry, and they start being critical of their partner. And they're saying, well, what the, there's nothing wrong with you. Come on, snap out of it. You really, I can't stand being around you and all of that stuff. And they start really, vomiting a lot of venom at the partner, right? Which does not help. Does not help at all. It just makes the grumpy old guy grumpier.
It does.
And the other thing that women, that I think is a slightly more helpful strategy, is you just don't engage them. Just don't even go there when they start worrying about, oh, I've got this pain in my back. Oh, what do you think it could be? Should I Google it? You just, you don't get into it. Just don't get into it. You change the subject, you try to just go about your own life, or you say things like, well, I'm sure you'll figure it out, honey. I'm sure it's fine. You'll figure it out. But you don't argue with them, and you don't struggle with them, right? That will make you into a grumpy old woman. You don't want that.
It's true. When you've got that combination with the two of them, that becomes this very difficult.
Yeah.
And definitely, I'm sure testosterone is an issue.
Absolutely.
And there are some great ways to address that. I'm going to tell you like a very unconventional way of doing it, and which is to get sunlight on his testicles. Sunlight or red light therapy on the testicles. And okay, I know this sounds funny, but it actually does help increase testosterone. So whenever, I have nobody around and the garden is private and there's no gardener here and no one else, I tell my husband, you go out there, pants off, underwear off, testicles in the sun. True story. But it does work. And it makes a big difference, because once the testosterone's higher, then they have more of a will and a drive for life, for the future, more positive outlook. They're more patient. Just everything changes. When testosterone plummets, it's just not a good situation. Also, like I said, the sun is super important. Get him out in nature, get him walking, get him interested in a hobby, maybe a manly hobby, go boxing or golfing, or, something that gets him out of the house and that drives his passion and gets the focus away from feeling sick, or, being a bit of a hypochondriac that, oh, something's wrong with my body, which is, a terrible feeling. And if you're always concentrating on that, oh my God, I'm sick or something's wrong, then you're going to, eventually manifest those conditions. So you need to be very careful with your thoughts and your words. So like Dr. Lucille said, don't encourage him, don't engage him, don't play along with him that something is wrong with him when everything is fine.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And I have read about that, the testicles in the sun.
Yeah.
That's great.
It works. Great. And when there's no sun, like if you guys are watching us on YouTube right now, I don't know if you guys can guess, which one of us is in Spain and which one of us is in Toronto. Any guesses? Let us know below. So you probably don't have as much sunshine right now as I have in Spain, but then a red light therapy device can also be very beneficial.
Yeah.
It can really help. So
Absolutely.
hopefully, Linda, that will help, and hopefully things will become better. It's very hard. This is a really tough time, and we go through many changes. And you may be going through menopause, or maybe have gone through it, and he's going through all these changes. Maybe the kids are grown, and just it's a huge adjustment. And I know because we're going through it at the moment as well. And your lives just change so much. So the best thing you can do is to stay grounded as much as you can, and do things that make you happy and that bring you joy. So that brings us to the next question from Giovanni.
Right. Giovanni has a very sensitive question. I'm writing to you about a personal issue that's been causing me a lot of distress. I struggle with body odor, despite practicing good hygiene and trying various products. This has made me extremely self-conscious, especially in social and work environments. I'm constantly worried that others might notice, and it's affecting my confidence and interactions. Can you offer any advice on how to effectively manage this issue and regain my self-esteem? Okay, that's interesting.
That's an interesting question. It's a difficult situation.
It's a difficult situation. I'm very glad you brought this up, because you're not the only one who has this kind of issue. So anyway, I turn it over to you first, Lynn, because you are the naturopath, and you have all sorts of things to suggest.
My first thought is, about body odor and things like that, is that, was this even ever an issue before, like, modern day living, without the processed foods and our toxic lifestyles and all the toxins everywhere, and using deodorant and soap and all of these things all the time? Was this a problem in the past? I would be really curious to know that. Or did we just have a normal natural smell and this wasn't an issue? And isn't it amazing how in Asia, certain cultures, they don't have body odor? I find that so fascinating. So there's not even, like in Korea, they don't even sell deodorant. It's not. How amazing is that?
I didn't know that.
Yes,
I didn't
Japan,
know that. Wow.
Korea, a lot of Asian countries, they have no body odor and no earwax. What is up with that?
Wow.
And why did we get shafted with all this stuff? It's just not fair.
Amazing.
But isn't that amazing?
Wow. Yeah.
And so I think it's, first of all, Giovanni, you might have I have a very, very strong sense of smell, which is like much more acute than anyone around me. So I can smell things that other people cannot smell. And it's not really a blessing. So you might be someone like me, and maybe you're smelling things that other people are not smelling at all. That could be the first issue. The second one is the cleaner your lifestyle, the healthier you eat, the better you take care of yourself, the less you'll have issues with body odor. And a simple thing that I can tell you is you can buy liquid chlorophyll, and this comes like in a liquid form, and you can just add a few drops into your water. And this is like an internal deodorant, which will change the composition of your body. So when you're sweating, your sweat, your breath, everything will be a lot fresher. That's just a simple technique. But if this continues and it is bad and other people are complaining, you might need to get do a checkup to see if something's wrong. You have too many heavy metals in your body. That could also be an issue that could cause body odor. I mean, it can be so many things. It's so hard to, specifically pinpoint one thing. But if you have a healthy lifestyle and proper hygiene and everything, then you might want to, maybe go see a naturopath and do some investigations and see what's happening in your body and what you can do to improve these things. But liquid chlorophyll will be a very quick and easy solution that you can start right away. Dr. Lucille?
Yeah, one of the things I just want people to be aware of is that this issue, which is called hyperhidrosis, is something that can be a side effect from certain medications.
That's true too.
So, so if you have been put on a medication, maybe you haven't made the connection that that your issue with body odor started when you started on the medication, you might want to just check into that, or anybody else who has this issue, just notice what you're taking, and you can just Google side effects. There are a number of medications that do create this problem. So
Yeah, that's
just so
very
you
true.
know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a really important thing to look into as well. Absolutely.
Mhm.
So best of luck, Giovanni, and please write us
Yeah.
back because we want to know if these tips worked. And yeah, very, very uncomfortable issue, and I totally feel for you. And I'm sure there are a lot of people that are suffering in silence from something like this, and
Mhm.
hopefully some of our tips will help you guys. This brings us to our next question, which is from Margaret. Margaret is dealing with a painful transition. She says, my husband and I divorced recently. It's been really hard dealing with this, even though I know it was the best thing for me to leave him. The toughest part is the loneliness. My kids live far away from me, and a lot of my friends have either died or are uncomfortable with having me around now that I'm single and they're still married. At 67, am I too old to make new friends? I have no idea how to do that. Well, it's really tough, Margaret.
Yeah.
I totally
Yeah.
feel for you.
Yeah.
And I mean, I can't even imagine that loneliness, especially after being married for such a long time. I've been with my husband almost 30 years, and I think of that, like what will happen if, something happens to him. And he's older than me, so I'm healthier, so I'm always thinking, am I going to have 20 years, 30 years without him eventually? And I've never been on my own, never lived on my own for longer periods of time, so it's really hard for me to imagine that. But what does give me comfort is knowing that I do have friends that I can rely on, and hopefully I can foster those friendships, and that I would not be lonely. But if you're finding that it's difficult to keep your friendships now that you're not married, and I guess the married friends are, where you guys maybe were hanging out as couples, and now the dynamic has changed and it's more different. But the good news is I think you can make friends at any age.
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
think there are a lot of women that are going through similar things. It's funny that people are, before in the past, people in their 50s and 60s didn't really get divorced, right? This is very new that people,
Mhm.
even later on in life, they decide they want to start a new life, and it's still not too late. So good for you if your marriage wasn't working and you feel like you've got all these great years ahead of you and you want to enjoy them, then well done. You took a huge step. And there's definitely so many ways to make new friends. I'm sure there are lots of groups, even online, where you can meet ladies that are going through divorces or are in similar situations. Or you can, join art classes, yoga classes, any kind of social activity where you have other ladies of similar age that are looking also for friends. Walking groups and things like that can be great, where you combine exercise and making friends. I think that can be a very good combination. What do you think, Dr. Lucille?
Absolutely, I agree with everything you said. And that is an interesting phenomenon now. It's called gray divorce. Gray divorce,
Oh,
which
I
is,
haven't heard that.
yeah. So people in their late 50s, 60s on up. That is I think it's now considered the most rapidly growing population to be divorcing at
Wow.
this. Yeah.
Why do you
And
think that
so,
is?
you know, that's really hard to know. It started even before, all the craziness of the last 3 years.
Mhm.
There's lots of speculation about it. My sense of it is that women, have an expectation that if they sacrifice or they take care of their family, they take care of their husband and all of this, there will be some reward, at the end of it. Like, oh, we'll retire, we'll have this happy life. We're now empty nesters. We can
So
travel the
wait a
world.
minute, there's no reward. Now you're saying there's going to be no reward. What am I doing here?
Well, in some cases, there just is not. It's kind of like what we talked about earlier about the grumpy old man syndrome. You do all the things you're supposed to do. The kids leave the nest, and you turn and look at one another, and you go, "What do we have in common?" Like what, right? And I think women are less tolerant of that. as you said, they say to themselves, well, I'm not that old and I want to have a life. I don't just want to sit on the couch with my grumpy old guy, right? Um,
And
there may be other
it's
issues.
mostly women initiating the divorces, right? It's a lot more women initiating a divorce
Yes.
than men now.
Oh, certainly, and certainly much more than in the past.
Mhm.
And the other thing that happens is they're less likely to tolerate infidelity,
Mhm.
which a lot of women would just, tolerate because, well, they might be financially dependent on the guy. Their status in society may be dependent on the guy, right? And they would, a lot of women refuse to divorce, even though they're in miserable marriages, because they don't have their own income or any means of creating their own income, and their whole world would collapse because they're just not socially acceptable.
And also
After
religious beliefs also would keep a lot of
religious
people married.
beliefs. Yeah, but that's I think another thing that is different in that our religious beliefs are not that strong. They're not that powerful anymore.
Mhm.
So I don't think that, I think that really it's not holding women back from
Mhm.
exiting the
Not like
marriage.
before, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but I agree with everything that Lynn suggested for you. Margaret, the world is teeming with lonely people.
Mhm.
It's just that's like so huge an issue. In Britain, they have a special department of the government. It's Department of Loneliness or something, where
Wow.
they actively put resources to helping people to make connections, because they recognize what a difficult and risk-laden situation it is when people are lonely, because their risk for all sorts of physical and mental issues rises.
Yes.
And so they wanted to put some resources towards helping people to connect. But there are so many people out there who are lonely and not knowing how to connect. And so I would encourage you to do exactly what Lynn said, which is, join groups, look for people online. Like that's how you and I met, Lynn, was really, we were on Instagram, right?
Exactly. Yes, on Instagram.
And yeah. And so it's never, ever, ever too late. As long as you're interested in life, as long as you enjoy being around other people, you just be yourself, and you will find the people who will gravitate towards you, and vice versa. So it's just a matter of going out and trying whatever you want to try to get to meet people. Activities are great. I think they're a wonderful way to find people, and especially where you are exercising.
Mhm.
That really helps on many levels.
It does.
So,
Or get a dog,
yeah.
Margaret, because having a
Or get a
dog,
dog.
you'll never be lonely. And also then you're walking your dog and you can meet new people. I think it's also a great way to connect and meet people. It's so interesting because today we are constantly connected with other people and we are lonelier than ever. Isn't that amazing?
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
like through technology, we are constantly in touch with everyone. And
Right.
yet we are so lonely. It's just so sad, isn't it?
Yeah, and people just don't even know how to start conversations with one another.
It's true.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully that's not an issue for you, Margaret. And hopefully you can get out there and make some friends and build a new beautiful life for yourself. And we wish you absolutely nothing but the best.
Absolutely. Let's hope the next chapter of your life is so much better than the last two. Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So we move on to Christine, who's in a stalemate with her boyfriend. John and I have been together for over 5 years. I'm in my 30s and I'd love to get married and have kids. Every time I bring up the subject of marriage, he either changes the subject or he says he's not ready. My friends tell me I should leave and find another relationship, but I love him. I also don't want to believe that this relationship has been a big waste of time. What should I do?
That's a tough one, especially when you've already invested 5 years in your 30s. It's really difficult.
Yeah.
But I think someone who is not ready to get married after 5 years when you're in your 30s, I don't know. It's not going to happen, in my opinion.
I would kind of agree that the likelihood is less and less with each passing year. And especially if he's avoiding the subject, then you know he's uncomfortable. He knows that he probably wants to stay in the relationship, but he doesn't want to come right out with it and say, yeah, I want to stay in the relationship, but I don't want to have kids. And so, it depends on, I think, where you're really at, Christine, because I've seen so many women who say, I'd really love to have children. I'd really love to get married. But then they will stick with a relationship where they're not getting either one. And so you might want to really do a deep dive. First thing is do a deep dive on yourself and ask yourself, how committed am I really to having children? Was this kind of a wonderful, lovely idea that lit me up when I was in my 20s and now not so much anymore? Because if it's a driving passion, let's face it, you likely would have moved on by now, knowing that your biological time clock is ticking, right? You probably would have moved on. So you might want to ask yourself, well, is this really something I'm into now anymore? If you do the deep dive and you say to yourself, no, I can't imagine myself going for the rest of my life not having children, then I would say then you really need to face the facts with your partner here, John. I would say sit him down and say, this is a non-negotiable for me. I want to have children. My biological time clock is ticking. I need to know from you whether or not you're willing to make that commitment to have children. And don't do it I would say don't do it in a judgmental way or in a critical, hostile way. It's more like just fact finding. Okay, we've been in this situation for so long. It's time for us to really face the facts. What's going on here?
Without giving him an ultimatum, but just trying to have a conversation.
No ultimatums, because you don't want to turn it into a struggle for control. I mean, gosh, you really don't want that. And if he comes across as still kind of avoidant, or maybe he'll be respectful enough to give you an honest answer. If he says no, well then at least you know something. At least you are clear on the territory. And then you decide what you want to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's not easy.
It's not. I mean, I went through this with my husband when I met him. I was in a relationship for 8 years before him, we were engaged, but it ended, thank God, but it went nowhere in the end. And when I met my husband, he always said, he was married before, and he said, the next one's going to be forever. He always had this intention of getting married again. And we were dating almost 2 years. And then he says to me, out of the blue, he just says, I'm never getting married again. All women do is take advantage of you, and they just take you for a ride. They take everything you have. He had nothing. And then I realized, okay, well, here I am. I was like 26. I was still very young in today's world, but in that time, I was ready for marriage and children and everything. So as soon as he said that to me, I said, okay, you don't want to get married. You don't want children. Thank you very much. I'm out. And we moved apart, and I was gone. And I said, I'm not going to waste another 8 years of my life. And I just knew that I'm not going to go through that again. And, I gave him I walked away completely. And of course, then he realized, okay, this is not what I wanted. So, we ended up getting back together. And of course, he wanted to marry me. And, we had a child together, and everything turned out well. And here we are almost 30 years later. But we needed to have that, once he said that, I needed to make my own decision. Okay, well, can I live with this, or do I want to live with this or not? And I knew that for me, that was a non-negotiable. So I don't want to waste my time in a relationship that's going nowhere. And, if you call his bluff and you walk away and he lets you go, then, you're not giving him an ultimatum, but then he's also not the guy for you. If he's
Absolutely.
happy and he's not looking for you or looking to try to get back with you, and he's fine and he's happy, then he wasn't your man. And then hopefully you still have time to find the right guy for you.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, that's wonderful. You're a great example. Real inspiration there. A lot of women don't have the courage to do that.
Well, I mean, once you know what you want, you need to stick to your guns. And ultimately, that is your goal. You want to get married and you want to have kids, and you've already invested 5 years with this guy. It's not like you've been only together for 5 months and you don't know each other. After 5 years, if a guy is still not sure about you, or he just doesn't want to get married and doesn't want to have kids, then you need to know that. And then you need to make a decision based on that. Can you live with this? Is he more important to you than having a family? Or is having a family ultimately your goal in life? And that's more important. And then you need to find the right partner. And as hard as that is, and to let John go and to start a new life again, which is super difficult, it needs to be done sometimes.
Right. Yeah. Great. I agree thoroughly.
So let us know, Christine, please do write back and let us know what you decided to do. And if you guys did have that heart-to-heart talk, and, I really wish the best for you. And I hope you guys can resolve this, because 5 years is a long time, and walking away is also very, very, very difficult and very painful for everybody. Thank you, Christine, for the questions. Thank you, everyone, for the questions. They were really good questions today. I really, really enjoyed these. Keep them coming, guys. And if you enjoyed this episode, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this episode with a friend, because that helps us tremendously to get this, podcast out there to as many people as possible. Thank you so much to my partner in crime, Dr. Lucille. We always enjoy your insights so much. And in the next episode 15 is going to be another rapid fire. So we're going to be addressing Am I the Problem? I've got more Am I the Problem questions for you. We did this for episode 10 and you guys seem to love it a lot. So hopefully you will also enjoy this one. So make sure you guys tune in for next week. Thank you so much for watching and listening.
Thank you, everybody. We enjoyed it thoroughly, and we hope you did too.
Thank you, guys. Take care.
Please be aware that Lynn and I are here to provide insights, advice, stories that are for educational and entertainment purposes only. None of our content should be considered to be personal, medical, or mental health therapy. If you are experiencing a mental health or physical health challenge, please consult the appropriate healthcare specialist. We are here to provide the best possible content in an atmosphere of positive conversation and personal growth.